Most men don't realize this until it's far too late. Your silence isn't just an absence of words, it's a presence of strength. You've been conditioned to believe that love means constantly explaining yourself, that being a good man means over-communicating, fixing, apologizing even when it's not your fault. You've been told that walking away is weak, that leaving without a word means you didn't care. But here's the truth. Silence is one of the most powerful responses you can give, especially when it's not driven by anger, but by clarity. When you stop engaging, when you step away calmly and without drama, something deep shifts. Not in you, but in her. You're no longer playing her game. You're no longer reacting to her emotions, her inconsistencies, her tests. And that throws her off more than anything else ever could. Because silence doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like reflection. Suddenly, everything she did, everything she said, everything she thought was justifiable, starts to echo back at her. She expected noise. She expected pushback. She expected a reaction, maybe even a breakdown. But what she got instead was nothing. And that nothing speaks volumes. Because in that space where your energy used to be, there's now a void. Not filled with bitterness, not filled with blame, just quiet. And quiet is where people confront themselves. The truth is, silence requires more strength than shouting. It's not easy to walk away without explaining, especially when your heart was real. But sometimes, the most powerful way to say, "I'm done," is to stop speaking entirely. You don't owe closure to someone who didn't value your presence. Your silence isn't a punishment. It's proof that you've evolved. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. That's when silence becomes your shield and your statement. She's not missing your words. She's missing what your presence made her feel. That's the part most men don't realize until much later. You thought it was about the messages, the long late-night talks, the jokes, the check-ins, the good morning and sweet dreams. But it never was. It was about the feeling behind them, the consistency, the comfort, the emotional warmth that came so naturally from you. She felt safe in that rhythm, in knowing you were always there, even in silence between texts. You weren't just a guy she talked to. You were a space she could relax in. A steady, grounded energy that made her feel seen, cared for, and secure. Now that you've gone quiet, it's not your words she's scrolling through and missing. It's that emotional blanket she used to wrap herself in when things got rough. You gave her a sense of calm without even trying. That version of you, the one that offered softness without demanding it back, the one who stayed solid when she was uncertain, that version has gone quiet. And that silence is louder than any breakup speech or angry text ever could be. She expected you to reach out, maybe not right away, but eventually. She thought you'd circle back, explain yourself, give her closure, or fall into old patterns. But you didn't. You held the silence. You stayed still. And now she's not just missing you. She's starting to realize she didn't understand what she had until it was gone. It's not your conversations that echo in her mind now. It's how your presence made her feel whole. And now that feeling is gone. Replaced by a silence that doesn't ask for attention, doesn't beg to be noticed. It simply is. And that absence, that peace, is speaking louder than love ever did. The moment you went quiet, the power shifted, and she felt it. Not because you said something clever, not because you shouted, cried, or pleaded. You didn't send a long message explaining your side. You didn't fight to be understood. You simply stopped responding. That silence hit differently. because it wasn't laced with bitterness. It was calm, controlled. And that's what shook her the most. You were always the one to care, to check in, to hold it together when things got messy. You replied fast. You showed up. You made it easy for her to feel secure, even when she didn't deserve that kind of access. But now, all of that is gone. She doesn't know how to navigate the stillness. She's used to your reactions, used to you proving your love every time she pushed. She never thought the day would come when you'd stop trying. That's why it's not just silence. It's power. Quiet power. You didn't snatch back control with anger. You reclaimed it by withdrawing your energy, your time, your attention. Things she always assumed would be available to her no matter what. Now she's sitting with questions she never had to ask before. Why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he fighting for this? That confusion is where the shift happened. Because the moment she realizes she no longer has control over your emotions, the dynamic changes. You didn't beg. You didn't explain. You simply chose peace. That choice, that discipline, it flipped the entire script. She thought she held the upper hand. She thought silence would hurt you. But now she's starting to understand. Your silence wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign that you finally knew your worth. And nothing's more powerful than a man who no longer gives his energy to what drains him. When a man goes silent, he doesn't just disappear. He becomes a mirror. And that's what she never expected. See, when you were always around, always responding, always making space for her emotions, she never had to confront herself. She never had to ask hard questions because your presence distracted her from the truth. But now that you've gone quiet, all she's left with is her own reflection. And that silence? It's forcing her to look inward. Maybe for the first time in a long time, she's starting to question everything. Did I push him too far? Was he actually the one? Why didn't I value what I had when it was right in front of me? And none of those questions came from anything you said. They came from the stillness you left behind. Because your silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the space where truth echoes. And that echo is louder than any argument you could have had. Before, she was confident. She thought she had you figured out. Thought she could pull away, come back, test your limits, and you'd still be there. But now she's realizing that your patience wasn't infinite. Your heart wasn't a guarantee. And that scares her more than losing an argument ever could. Because now she's sitting with herself, her choices, her actions, her regrets. You didn't walk away to hurt her. You walked away to heal you. And in doing so, you became the one thing most people can't handle, a reflection of their own behavior. That's what silence does. It holds up a mirror. And what people see in that mirror, it either wakes them up or breaks them down. Either way, your silence told the truth, and now she has to live with it. She thought she could always come back, that no matter how distant she got, no matter how many times she pulled away, you'd still be there, waiting, responding, showing up like you always did. But now, you're not. You didn't block her. You didn't lash out. You didn't post something dramatic. You just went silent. And that silence, that calm detachment, is cutting deeper than any fight ever could. Because it's not cold. It's final. It's not revenge. It's release. You didn't go quiet to hurt her. You went quiet to heal you. Now she's testing the waters. A random hey. A subtle Instagram story. A song lyric that she knows you'll recognize. Not because she wants to fix things, but because she wants to see if she still has access. She's not checking in. She's checking your temperature. seeing if you'll bite, seeing if the old version of you, the one she could always count on to respond, still exists. But this time you don't. You don't react. You don't reach. You don't fold. And that's when it hits her. You're not hers anymore. Not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually. You've become unavailable. Not out of pride, out of peace. You've reclaimed your energy, and now she's on the outside of a door she thought would always stay open. She might keep trying. Small gestures, vague messages, emotional breadcrumbs, but you're not picking them up, because you've already walked through the fire, and you're not going back to the smoke. You're not being distant to punish her. You're protecting your peace. And that kind of silence, the kind that comes from understanding your own worth, doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It just is. And that quiet, grounded presence, that's your new power. And it's louder than anything you could have ever said.